Robert, we're gonna, I think, have to start on the big one of the week, which is the Candace Owens lawsuit. And you went very hard on people who are sensitive, like, oh my goodness, aren't you insulted, or you went hard during the Bourbon with Barnes about the lawsuit, and there's diverging views on it, and some people are saying Candace is cooked, others are saying, it's Delaware, it's a leftist jurisdiction. And so she might be cooked on jurisdiction, but otherwise, First Amendment, she should survive. I went through it. I mean, I did read the lawsuit, and when I read the lawsuit, and I heard what you had to say during the Bourbon with Barnes, I'm like, okay, I understand when you say that there can be nothing more defamatory than saying someone is involved in an incestuous relationship, has participated in murder, is controlled by MK Ultra CIA stuff. Flip side, I mean, I know. I'll steel man your position. I know that you get particularly angry with people who you feel are grifting off of and undermining legitimate causes, legitimate cases. During the 2020 election cycle, you went particularly hard on QAnon, whatever the heck you want to call it, because in going with the Dominion vote flipping ghost of Hugo Chavez, German servers, they delegitimized legitimate criticism of the 2020 election and how to challenge the constitutionality of the ballots. And I think you're doing the same thing with Candace right here, in terms of her delegitimizing or maybe bringing into disrepute legitimate criticism, which might just have to do with the perversion of the relationship between Macron and his wife. The flip side, I listened to Candace, and whether you agree with her or not, to me it sounds like, and I don't want to equate her to Alex Jones, because I think, Alex, call me a little biased, maybe has been right more often, or is a little bit less extreme in some things. But to me, it comes off as sort of like an Alex Jones. She's building a theory. Everybody regards it as a theory. It's her theory, quite clearly opinion, and I think she holds it sincerely. That was my long preamble into allowing you to go hard on those who say she's not cooked.
Yes. So for everybody out there that may have re-promoted her story, or may have just talked about it, but without crystal clarity, just a little word of the wise: the law firm that's handling the case for the Macrons is the same law firm that handled the Dominion cases. And it is quite clear they're intending to set up this case to go after a bunch of names, including some big names. They, it looks like the Macrons may be intending to sue Joe Rogan, sue Theo Vaughn, sue Tim Dillon, sue Andrew Stein, sue Clayton Morris of the Redacted, to basically take out almost every influential podcaster that flipped to Trump in 2024 in some capacity. And they're using Candace to do it. And they're starting with this suit, hoping to get it rolling in a certain direction that then predicates them going after the others. We predicted this about Dominion all the way back, and then that's what happened. So the suit has been filed in state court in Delaware. The county that it is in is more Democratic than Austin, Texas. So more than 2-1. A typical jury in that case is likely to have no more than 3 Republicans at best. And you might end up with 0 Republicans in that jury pool. The entire judiciary is incredibly partisan, as has become apparent for almost anybody that's dealt with it. Candace herself, when she tried to file suit on defamation grounds, got kicked because it's wrong politics. Whereas Fox paid $750 million to Dominion to get out of that case. Again, wrong politics. So and if anybody's wondering why Delaware, there were some people that were surprised by the idea that foreigners could sue in America. I'm not sure where they got that. Foreigners can always sue in America.
Is if it's anything like Canada, Quebec, all they have to do is post security for costs in the event that they lose, so they put up a certain amount of money. I don't know if that's the same thing in the States.
No, not in the States. All you gotta do is file suit, and why it has jurisdiction is because the defendant is here. But there's no limitations on foreigners suing in U.S. courts. So they've sued in state court, and the reason why it's in Delaware is Candace chose to incorporate her businesses in Delaware. Some of us have been saying for years, get out of Delaware. She didn't take the message. So that's why she's got a very Democratic partisan judicial pool and a very Democratic partisan jury pool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fundamental allegation is defamation. I saw a lot of confusion about what defamation is. It was striking to me. I was like, How is it like the same people that were cheering Trump filing defamation suits were suddenly saying no public figure could win in a suit? And it's like, hold on a second. Do you not realize Donald Trump was president in the United States when he's suing Murdoch, when he just sued CBS, when he sued all these other people? So you're talking about, so yes, in fact, public figures can sue. And what may surprise people is the big difference between U.S. law and French law is U.S. law is actually much more plaintiff friendly for public figures, especially in cases where the libel is not made in an official media press publication. The U.S. is much better for the Macrons than France. France has one of the shortest statute of limitations in the world. It's a 3-month statute of limitations. Number one. Number two, if the publication is not an official press publication, then you almost can only go criminal. There's there's very little to no civil remedy. So third, there's no republication rule. So in America, if you republish a lie, you can be sued again. Not in France. It's from the original publication. So if you're going to libel somebody, my advice is definitely go to France. The fourth thing is the criminal cases are limited in fines. So the fines are like up to 13 grand, something like that. So it's very, very small economic risk that you face, very little imprisonment risk you face. Fifth, you have a unique defense. It's a complete defense if you actually believe something. Doesn't mean if you're insane, you have what I call the insanity defense, which is, the judge, I get it's insane to believe this, but I'm insane. And that's a complete defense, which, by the way, was the defense. The Macrons brought 2 criminal charges against 2 of the 3 sources that Candace Owens relied on here. They were convicted at trial for libeling the Macron and her brother, Bridget Macron and her brother, Mrs. Macron and her brother, and went up on appeal, and their defense was, no, you don't understand, French appeals court. Yes, it's insane, but we're insane. And the appeals court said, you're right. We think you are. So that makes it a good faith defense, insanity defense, and that's how it got off. A lot of people have completely misunderstood what happened in the French courts because of that. I think Candace Owens herself did. Candace Owens relying on this source. There's a reporter who first associated with the right, these sort of lower scale kind of individual, put out a newsletter saying this way back in 2017 when Macron first ran for president, making some of Becoming Bridget, and that was the book title, etc. Because they didn't care at the time. It was like, some marginal newsletter writer, whatever. They didn't bring a claim within 3 months. And that meant they could never go after him. And so consequently, he's built a whole industry on this, built, books, et cetera, on and on and on, going on and on. And the conspiracies keep getting wider and broader. So that's the sort of background for the suit. What needs to be proven by the Macrons is that a factual statement was made. I even saw Mike Cernovich getting a little confused on this. There's a lot of confusion that if something is an opinion, it's protected in America. That's not true. It has to be an opinion that no reasonable person would interpret as implying a fact. And so the question is whether there's a fact inferred and whether a reasonable person could infer that fact. I would say briefly for Candace Owens, if you're going to go on this kind of thing, you're much better off saying, no, this is my opinion. Candace obsessively reminded everyone this was not an opinion. This was fact that she was stating.
When she got out on one of her tweets, said, she was born a man, she'll die a man.
Correct. And the other difficulty for Candace in particular is, of course, she sued Facebook for trying to claim something wasn't a fact when it was, by the opinion being inferred fact. So there's some difficulty there for her. But the first thing you have to prove is that a statement that at least inferred a fact was made, that the statement was false, that the statement would be damaging to a person's reputation. Here there's, defamation per se, defamation per quad, defamation by insinuation, so on, and all these different kinds of it. But something false said about me that would lead to a reasonable person believing something bad about me that could then harm me. Examples of defamation per se are if you accuse someone of a crime. Mm-hmm. That the person is identified as the person is being talked about, unless you're Alex Jones, then the people you don't have to be identified at all suddenly to get defamation suit. And last but not least, and there was a lot of misunderstanding about this, reckless disregard for the truth is the standard here. So it does, even if Candace absolutely believed what she was saying was true, she can be held liable if they say that she had good reason to know it wasn't true, or failed to act with the requisite degree of due diligence.
And just
Here
so,
again, go ahead, sir.
no, just so everybody appreciates that, because the term is actual malice, but actual malice includes reckless disregard for the truth and not like actual nefarious intent. I'm going to ask you a subsidiary
Oh,
question.
one little addendum. In Delaware, there is that added defense that if you can show it was not malicious or malevolent, then you actually have like another added aspect potential defense. But they've interpreted that pretty consistently with reckless disregard.
Does I'll ask you now, just before I forget, does merchandising, say it's a sincerely held belief in the person and there's the accusation of willful disregard, whatever, does merchandising what might be the false statement add a level or an argument for actual malice?
Correct. It's motivation to disregard the truth. So that's how it plays in. It also goes to the unique Delaware defense, or relatively unique Delaware defense, of this malicious or malevolent component. That if you can show they had a monetary incentive, then that's proof of maliciousness or malevolence under Delaware law. So the core allegations of the Macrons against as to what factual statements they're saying are false and defamation per se is that they interpret Candace's sequence of comments. I should a little bit procedural background. The Macron sent four retraction correction letters to Candace Owens over this time period, including before she did her first video broadcast, but while she had commented on it in other settings. And then after each one of the different broadcasts, they would issue another retraction request, another retraction request, another retraction request. And then they brought suit when Owens said she would not retract or correct, according to the suit. Now again, the suit, maybe Owens will be able to dispute some things in the suit as to whether they're factually accurate or not. But we'll operate from the assumption, for the purpose of evaluating the suit, is if these facts are true, then here's what that looks like legally. The main core of the gist of the complaint is that here's what the Macrons say are libels. They say that Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, is married to his father, that Brigitte Macron is not only a man, but is his father and is part of the Rothschild family, which connected to as literally bloodlines. But the Rothschilds are part of a Jewish cabal that aren't really Jews. They're a Khazarian saint. They're Baphomet worshiping child pedophile Satanists who drink Christian kids' blood, who are disguised as Jews. That the crimes that they say Candace accused them of are false impersonation, forgery, fraud, identity theft, extortion, bribery, blackmail, illegal marriage, rape, incest, attempted murder, and murder. So they say, in addition, as part of this process, that Candace Owens would misrepresent all kinds of things as part of covering up her scheme, as they allege. For example, they said that she would say she didn't get photos when she did. She would say something's in a photo that isn't in a photo that is. She would say an article says something. She did this yesterday, by the way, online. She was somehow connecting this to Eli Wiesel, somehow they're cousins or something, and she says it's in a book. It's not in the book. It's never been in the book. I don't know where she got this. But basically she would say, this is in this article, and it's not in the article. Or she would say, this is not in this article, and it is in the article. She would say, this is not in a book, and it is in the book. She would say, oh, this is in this book, and it's not in the book, or it's not in the book, and it is in the book. She would say it's not in a documentary when it is, or it is in a documentary when it isn't. She would say that she would even lie, according to the Macrons, about what their recusal letter, their retraction letters said. They admit in the letters that they committed rape. Actually, just the opposite is in the letters. They didn't include any photos with the letters. Photos were included in the letters. This is again according to the Macrons' complaint. And I have not seen her dispute these factual allegations today. So basically, they have by my count, when I went back through the complaint, 125 separate or give or take, separate factual lies that they allege Owens told.
Let me bring this one up right now, because this is where I say that the pleadings themselves sort of almost set out her defense, where they say, projecting, Owens claimed the Macrons were not behaving in ways one does when you are telling the truth. She claimed that there are no photos from the first 30 years of Mrs. Macron's life, but contradicted herself just moments later by admitting the photos of the young Mrs. Macron had been released. She just does not believe they are real. See, and I don't want to belabor my point, because see, now when I'm listening to talk now, I appreciate that you're saying, as a matter of practical policy and given jurisdiction, she might be dead to rights. And I hear that and say, well, I don't necessarily like that when people call the Rothschilds, when people talk about Hillary Clinton's kill list. If Macron succeeds against Candace on that, well, anybody talking about a Hillary Clinton kill list, or how everybody around them commits suicide, it seems to me it's the same type. They expose themselves to the same type of defamation if Macron can succeed, from what I believe is clearly Candace's theory. And she just doesn't believe what they're producing by way of old photos. And therefore, clearly an elaborate theory that she is putting forward with whatever evidence she thinks supports it, but everybody views it as that and regards it as that.
Yeah, I think that the problem is, it's one thing to have sort of a broad opinion theory. Like if she'd covered this as, here's what this guy alleges, here's what his excuses are, here's what his grounds are, here's what the counter evidence is, here's how he disputes it, she would have been in much better territory. But she says these are all facts. They're absolutely proven facts. And she accuses people of the nastiest, most vicious crimes you can be accused of. To be told that your kids aren't your kids, that your parents aren't your parents, that your husband isn't your husband, that you're not even your gender, and your brother doesn't live and you're pretending to be him. I mean, you can tell in front of anything but a bunch of hardcore partisan supporter jurors, she's done. She's cooked. I mean, that's just my predictive analysis. A lot of people have interpreted this as me wanting it to happen or not wanting it to happen or whatever. I have been skeptical of this story from the get-go. I thought there were serious the story never read true to me, and I thought of it as a cover story for the otherwise, things I find unsettling. Now, not so unsettling, to be honest, in France. Anybody's been to France,
Well,
it's France.
Lolita, what was that movie? It was Lolita. Was that French or was that Russian?
There was a Russian story, but there's versions of that throughout France. I mean, sexual harassment laws for the longest time didn't apply in France because being flirtatious at work was considered very, appropriate. The original French story about a man whose wife cheats on him, and then he murders the person whose wife he was cheating with, and that brings them together because they rediscover their passion and love. I mean, that's only of France. Only France will tell you this.
I was just looking. Roman Polanski. I thought he went to France. He fled to France.
Yes, of course he went to France. I mean, the prime minister, when one of the famous presidents dies, I think maybe it was even de Gaulle. His 3 mistresses were there with his wife at the funeral, sitting right next to each other. So if anybody's been in France, this is, they have a different aspect. They got like 500 psychology books about everything. There are legitimate. I consider Macron a globalist, a warmonger. Someone that's utterly untrustworthy and bad for the world, deeply tied into the Rothschild Bank, who helped financialize and promote his political career as this sort of globalist agenda. I find the fact that he first met his wife, they claim not romantically, that he fell in love with her as a high school student, 15-year-old high school student, when she was 38, and I think 39 years old. I find that really pervy. But all of that's going to get swamped under this. That's my other concern. They're going to use this to say anything negative you say about Macron is, oh, you're one of those people. You're like Candace Owens. You think I drink Christian blood and am part of a secret pedophile ring. That's why she just kept going further and further and further. And then basic things like, don't claim a retraction letter says something it doesn't. Don't say it doesn't say something that it does.
I viewed that, again, she's argued like whenever it says they admitted that he raped her, because we're talking age rape, not consent rape, but because there is an argument. I want to make sure I'm not going crazy. Yes, I'm using Chat GPT, but I remember this. There's an argument that he was in fact 14 when they first met, and then it's arguable when they had relations. And 14 would have been statutory rape in France at the time because the age of consent was 15 with
If
no.
they had a sexual relationship.
Yeah, well,
I mean, they've always denied that.
Yeah. As I would have told them as their lawyer, deny. Sorry.
Sure. I just get the impression that he fell in love with her, so they and she supported his transfer to the other school and so forth. And she was telling the parents, "Oh, he'll fall in love with someone else. It's just a teenager being a teenager." So that's their version of the story. But I mean, when you go from that to, like, I see these people that will send me photos that they think are real. Folks, all the photos showing her having some sort of anatomy are fake. They're fake photos. Please stop sharing fake photos thinking they're real. For the love of, I mean, they do this with Michelle Obama all the time. It's like, oh, look at this, Barnes. It's fake, nitwit. I mean, it's incredible. So the problem is, if you look at if this through not a partisan sort of jury pool or a partisan hostile jury pool, and you listen to these allegations and people who say are mostly going to, usually your typical jury pool, often people end up on the jury, not even that politically active. They're going to hear these stories and think, what if they were told about me? And I think there's going to be some of the nastiest, meanest, cruelest stories imaginable. The other problem Owens has, of course, aside from her public statements, this is all factual, aside from her suing other people for doing much lesser version of this to her, is going to be her history of libeling people. So Owens going on really 8 years. At various times when she gets sideways with somebody, often in the conservative movement, she goes out and libels them. She's done this to a bunch of black conservatives repeatedly. Even did it to Steven Crowder when Crowder got sideways with the Daily Wire. Crowder pointed out he thought she was cooked, and he was reading the complaint, but it's partially filtered through Crowder's history with her.
Yeah.
That she would make stuff up about him. She would make stuff up about stories he written. They were just utterly false. That because of the situation he was in, he was not in a well-equipped situation, nor did he want to get into a libel lawsuit with her. But a lot of people that have followed her over the years know that she has a tendency. I think she thinks this is how Alex Jones operates. She thinks that she was going to be Alex Jones meets Oprah, was going to be the new Candace. I think the scope of the allegations, the other is, so what's the evidence of intent? There's a bunch of people that think, oh, they've never rebutted this. I was getting this online. And I was like, they've rebutted this repeatedly. They've rebutted this going all the way back to 2018.
Yeah, and then the argument's going to be that they've rebutted it with newspaper clippings, photocopies of newspaper clippings, all these other things. But Robert, are you telling me?
It's like, what other proof could you present? You know what I mean?
You're telling me that
these are all fake photos. I mean, on the left is Chelsea Manning. That's like, is what it is. That is a person who's, the identifies elsewhere, not Michelle Obama. It's a fake. But so the Daily Mail all the way back, she even admits that this was one of the first articles she read. And then she would misquote that article repeatedly over the years. I mean, some of this was just, she would re-script in her head what she wanted to believe was true. And then, according to the complaint, she would claim to have evidence that she never produced. She relied on a spiritual medium, clairvoyant, psychic, who doesn't seem to have any good record of being a successful psychic. Second, an amateur detective. And third, this early newsletter writer who has made a whole career on it, who, because of the statute of limitations, can't be sued. That's it. At least now, maybe she'll come forward that she's got a bunch of other sources. But people think, oh, they're suing just because she called him a man. Really, that's not it at all. She's suing because you've alleged a whole litany of the most horrendous crimes known to man against me. And because now your story has gone viral and got hundreds of millions of views around the world. And that's their explanation. I think their objective is to use all of Candace's screw-ups to go after a whole bunch of other people and permanently silence a wide range of critics because she would just mix match these insane things. I mean, can you imagine she's on the stand explaining why Joseph Mengele was misunderstood?
Well, I just think
how is that going to fly?
On the one hand, that might really bring in an insanity defense, or to say nobody takes her seriously. Flip side, I don't even see how that gets into evidence on the stand if the defense is.
It goes to 10. It goes. Not only that, she connects it. She chose to connect this. She kept going and going, and then saying the Macrons are blood relatives of the Rothschilds. And if you understand her broader perspective, is that this is a small cabal of almost cannibalistic people that are disguised as the world's Jews that are that faked the Mengele story. That they lied about Mengele. That Mengele was really a guy doing good work. This was the Nazi
Yeah,
horrible time.
Dr. Joseph Mengele, if anybody,
Correct.
did vivisections
It's stuff
on
that
pregnant women.
I just can't. I mean, people thought Alex Jones couldn't win the Sandy Hook cases when those started, and I showed that there was a lot of the allegations weren't really true, and so on and so forth. I was like, and then I hear the same people tell me they think Candace is going to win, and it's like, is she going to get her fan club as the jury pool? Because if not, to me, unless she can meaningfully dispute these facts, and if the other problem is just the aggregation of them, to say, hey, this isn't an article, and it's not in the article. Or to say it's not in the article and it is. To say it's in a book when it's not in the book. Or to say it's not in the book when it is. To say things like, for example, she should have never said they admitted to anything in the letters when the letters were just the opposite. It's like, how is she going to explain that to cross-examining? Well, that was just my opinion. Well, no, right here on a podcast, you say nothing you're saying is opinion. It's all fact. I mean, can you imagine her? Like, people think the Macrons are going to get hit in cross-examination. It's Candace Owens that's going to get cooked in cross-examination. I can see this coming 100 miles away. Candace Owens is done. She's cooked. Now, she's probably going to be financially okay because she married into what appears to be a very wealthy family, a man who's a lawyer, who's a British lord. Now, it says in the complaint that means she is a British citizen. That's not the way British citizenship works. It means she could become a British citizen, but you got to live there for like 3 to 5 years. It's, all kinds of things. Britain allows all kinds of immigrants into the country, legal and illegal, but not for citizenship purposes. Mm-hmm. So so that claim didn't seem accurate to me. But it is the most damning defamation suit I have ever read in my entire life. And just because of the number of half-wit lies she appears to have told. I mean, I said, don't lie. Oh, this is a documentary. And then it's like all of her fans believe that everything she's claimed is absolutely true and absolutely backed up. Folks, no, it isn't, because none of them took the time to look it up themselves. And then they would convince themselves of this rabbit hole conspiracy that it's very QAnonish. And so what they don't understand is Alex Jones, when he talks about something, one, he makes it clear most of the time he's talking about opinion. But when he's not, he's talking about something that 9 times out of 10, he has incredibly well vetted, incredibly gone through. He's incredibly well read. So he might make sardonic comments of so-and-so's an evil alien, fifth dimensional, but he's speaking metaphorically. He has never done anything like this, ever. And Candace thought she was going to be on the cutting edge, and she was going to get all this and get the millions of views, get the merch, sell the stuff. I mean, constantly asking for donations, pretending she's under risk at any time and can get murdered and assassinated, accusing. It's other things like, why, when you decide to accuse her Bridget Macron's brother of not existing, what happens when he shows up like he did in the prior proceeding, when in the criminal case he testified under penalty of perjury as to who he is?
It's
you know what I mean? Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, you can see how terrible. In front of a normie jury, they're going to think she's not only insane, they're going to think she's evil. And they're going to hammer her with the biggest imaginable verdict known to man.
This is the question that I was having, because some of what Candace says, I think should be regarded as clear-cut opinion. But is she not today's tabloid magazine, like Bat Boy Escapes type thing? How is what she's saying different than what tabloids claim to be true?
It should be. If she was smarter, she would have characterized herself as a tabloid person or covering. But that isn't what she did. And she's and I've run into tons of people. You can just see them online in response to my thing. Tons of people really believed her. Well, absolutely. They believed the whole thing. They never connected. Hold on a second. This is batshit insane.
This is Dread Robert from our locals community says, Viva, why do you think no one believes her? I don't think no one believes her. I don't think people believe her on everything, like any more than when Alex Jones says, they're snakeskin drinking the blood of babies. Like, but
everybody kind of knows Alex is being exact, except she's not. She really means it. She really believes it. She thinks it's all factual, and she wouldn't back off of anything. Anything. I mean, claiming somebody's their brother. I mean, for example, confusing intersex treatment with transitioning. Those are two totally different things. Totally different things. And she, I mean, like she's busy falsely accusing, hey, you brother, you don't exist. Hey, you parents, you don't exist. Hey, you mother, you're really a transitioning leader. Oh, Louis Vuitton, you wear Louis Vuitton. Oh, that means you're into the trans movement. What the hell? I mean, it's just I kept going through it. I was like, this is the most damning. If she came to me, I would say, same thing Election Wizard said, who's a lawyer and a lawyer himself. Said my advice immediately would be retract and correct immediately. Retract and correct immediately.
Oh no, no,
Just
no,
do it
no.
and do it profligately and get the heck out. But for anybody else out there, this is a trap to repeat anything Candace has said. Do
That is
not take the trap. For the record, for anybody who's watching our show, I've long said this is a completely insane, ridiculous story as a critic of Emmanuel Macron, as a critic of how they met. But that's American values, not French values, because that's the French. But I don't believe anything Candace is saying in this regard. I think she's batshit insane and belongs in a loony bin. We'll get to the Trump asylum stuff later. I think she's a pure grifter. Hey, everybody, you never go full retard. You know what else you don't do? Never go full Kanye. Never go full Kanye. So I think she's cooked. I get a lot of people who are sympathetic to the First Amendment, understand the sort of zeitgeist in which she's operating, and don't want to see that. But I think I encourage anybody, if you want to really read the suit, read the whole suit. And like the way you do it as a defamation libel lawyer, you put in every factual claim, and then you say, what's the evidence we have that this was true? And then what's the evidence that we have that it was reasonable for us to believe that evidence and disregard other evidence? Because their evidence as to her intent is that they told her it was wrong over and over again, that they included, birth certificates, official government documents, photographs, other newspaper reportings of her birth and a whole bunch of her marriage and so on and so forth, all of which Candace says is fake, basically. But produced all of this, that everybody, that the Daily Mail had debunked it years ago, that every independent review had debunked it repeatedly as to each and every one of those statements. And then they would say, you said this was in a documentary. It's not. You said this wasn't in a document. They would go. So when I was going through, it's only like 125 plus factual statements of different kinds you'd have to defend as a defense lawyer. It's like the chances you win on all of them are none. So I was like, she's going to get hit. And then the only question is, what's the verdict size? And you look at how a normie would respond to this. It's not like Sandy Hook, but they're still going to respond really badly. And so the verdict's going to be very high. Now, she likely doesn't, because she, I think, is married into wealth. His wealth is not necessarily attachable. So it's only her individual wealth and the wealth of these entities. But I think she'll be a bankrupting verdict. And my main one, you learn from this case how to do investigative reporting and how to come up with opinions. And if you're going to cover somebody else's, do it that way. When I do the hush hush series, I make it clear I'm just arguing for the alternative narrative, not the official narrative. In the court of public opinion, it may not even be my own opinion. It's just a hypothesis, speculative in nature. There's all kinds of ways you can do this, where if you have sincere concerns, you can get them out there without subjecting yourself to high risk. And everybody that Theo Vaughn, Tim Dillon, Joe Rogan, all of them. I mean, Rogan maybe already has, but all of them need to issue public statements getting themselves distanced from this. We had the exact same conversation, remember, during the Dominion stuff. Said Sidney Powell made a bunch of dumb statements. Don't repeat them. Don't get caught up in them, or you're all like Mike Lindell. You're going to get into big trouble. So that's my advice. I think Candace is cooked. Other people are hopeful that the First Amendment holds stronger. I'm not hopeful in this context because I think what her statements were outside the protection of the First Amendment. I'm not sympathetic with Candace because I think she's been a libeling grifter for a while now. But I hate the Macrons far, far more.
Well,
so I would much rather she win this suit than lose it. But I think she's literally got zero chance. I think it's going to be a bankrupting case. But my advice is to everybody else who might be connected to this story, it's a trap if you repeat it. Don't repeat it. Clarify anything you've said previously, especially the big podcasters, Clayton Morris, others. A lot of these guys do great, great work. And I don't want them to get sunk because they got stuck on the Candace crazy train.
Well, and I appreciate that because you were right with the Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Tom Pierce repeating certain statements, which at the time, this was during Dominion, were clearly factually incorrect. Smartmatic's connection, corporate connection with Dominion. And at the time, you're saying, you repeat these are clearly defamatory because they're easily verifiable false statements. And some people at the time, I remembered, were saying, Barnes, freedom of speech, yada, yada. And we were sitting there saying, look, the 2020 election was constitutionally improper. But this is the wrong argument, and these are factually incorrect statements that are going to sink people, and they did for right or for wrong. Giuliani got his. They all got railroaded.
I mean,
They got
they
railroaded.
discredited themselves and they discredited election challenges. I still get people, for example, who think the 2020 election was perfect because I pointed out this stuff was wrong. It's like I get the weirdest. Some of the people that have stuck in the candidate, and what it's designed to do is everybody who's out there saying this, you're now going to get pigeonholed as so that anything else you say, anything else you support, oh, you're one of those people. So Candace was simply complete, unless there's things we don't know, which is always possible. She appeared to be incredibly reckless with this. You don't double down and triple down and quadruple down. There's 100 ways to do this differently. And whatever it was, she got attached to it. And I think in her mind, it's her against the French president, or the leader of globalism. Yeah, there's some PR value to all of that in terms of the suit. But at the end of the day, I think, again, 0% chance. If it goes to a court judgment or a jury trial,
well, that's assuming
0% chance, in my view, she wins.
Assuming they don't, default her or whatever into some sort of verdict like they did with Alex Jones. But flip side, my theory is at least an argument I would raise. At best, Brigitte Macron is a woman who, at the age of 39, had relations with a 15-year-old student. Some say that the reason why he was pulled from that school was
that's the allegation, for the record.
That's the allegation.
The allegation. That's the allegation. And I don't believe the allegation personally, for the record, as well.
Some people are hypothesizing that the reason why Emmanuel was pulled from the school is because the parents were not down with the relationship, and that's why he switched schools. And there are some people who hypothesize that he was 14 years old at the time, which, if you engage in relations, is statutory rape. Okay. What about the argument that what about the argument that, okay, at the very best, she's a 39-year-old pervert teacher who's having whatever relations with a 15-year-old student, and therefore she has no reputation susceptible of harm in the context of these accusations, and is therefore defamation proof?
Well, except then you're accusing Emmanuel Macron of also sleeping with his father, engaging in ritualistic child pedophilia and incest as part of an extortion blackmail ring, getting people murdered on a routine basis. So I mean, it's like, and I was going through this, I was like, even I couldn't come up with a defense. I was looking, I was like, maybe this, oh god, this is the worst ever. So that's why I just think I couldn't. And then it's all the dumb lies. Don't say something's in a book that isn't. Don't say something's in a documentary that isn't. Don't say something isn't in a documentary that says. She said, oh, she could only produce 2. And I would get this stuff on X. I kept getting barraged. But you don't understand, Barnes. You haven't seen all the evidence, Barnes. You haven't seen all the proof, Barnes. Like, read the whole complaint, and unless you can rebut it.
Well,
things like saying, "Oh, this documentary only had 2 photos of her," and it turns out the documentary has like 50 photos.
Yeah, but then they also and for everybody in the chat saying show some pictures. They showed some pixtures, and like
they showed a bunch. I mean, they showed her family photos. They showed her photos outside of her. Here's the thing. She grew up grew up in a family that was not a high-profile public family, affluent family, but they weren't a high-profile public family. She is 71. So look at Donald Trump. Tell me how many photos you've ever seen of Donald Trump under 30, right? Or under 20, right? And he grew up in a high-profile family. There aren't a bunch of kid photos. I mean, I don't have a bunch of kid photos. Everybody else takes a bunch of photos. This is not my MO. Now, and we're thinking in the modern world.
Yeah.
But basically, she produced, to their opinion, if we produce a news article of your birth, that's even better than me claiming it along with your birth certificate. But as they produce something like a dozen or so photos. But here's what I mean by the dumb lies. She says, oh, there's only 2 photos of her in this documentary before a certain age. And it turns out there's about a dozen such photos. Okay, how do you explain that to the jury? Why did you say that you have to either say, you know what, I never watched the documentary, which is probably the case with kids, or, oh, I got confused. Oh, I meant something else. I mean, you look at these photos, these are typical for that generation. This sequence of photos is not that uncommon.
I'm just saying,
wedding photos. The other thing, if you look at her when she was younger, people are confusing the plastic surgery that I think she's had since then, et cetera, at 71, trying to pretend she's still 50. If you look at her when she was younger, She looks very, very feminine female. Her daughters look smack dab like her. All of that. I mean, instead, but like pretending the nephew isn't really a nephew, but is the product of an incestuous relationship. Because that's the other thing. She's libeling everyone else. Candace. Candace is libeling brothers, libeling mothers, libeling fathers, libeling randos that aren't even in aren't even the court of public opinion. Saying, "Oh, this person, they don't exist. They're not real. Oh, this other person, they're actually fake and fictitious." I mean, it's just she couldn't stop herself. It's like, couldn't you just stick with the narrow narrative? I mean, you have to go to all of this.
Our bets are in. I'm still. If I were betting, I'd bet on you. But I'm still sticking with my original prediction. We're gonna see. We're gonna see where it goes, Robert. There's gonna be a big "I told you so" either from you or I'm gonna say I'm a little smarter.
Won't be too bad. But word to the wise, everybody out there: be very careful of how you cover this. This is a trap by what they're laying, in my opinion. And make sure you correct and clarify anything that was not your personal opinion that you might have recited. This is if the quartering covered this, Luke Rutkowski covered it. If anybody covered it and didn't clarify, they didn't believe it. They are now at risk of being sued by where this is going. And this is clearly they're tuning up to take a whole bunch of people out. And so Candace is just the appetizer for where they're going.